Whoa, we're halfway there. And we've got our best guest of the year lined up as Ohio State, Penn State. It's the podcast daily. It's Wednesday. We're halfway to one of the matchups of the season, and Audrey Snyder is joining me, Austin Ward, and that guy over there, Bill Landis, to break it down. Audrey works for The Athletic, and she is the voice of Penn State coverage, in my estimation. Does that sound right, Audrey?
That sounds great, Austin. We will absolutely roll with it.
Okay, good.
The only one on the beat. Let's just tell the people that.
I think that's true because you are the only Penn State writer that I read. So if there's others, I'm sorry, but tough. I only care about Audrey's opinions, and she has many. How much are you looking forward to this matchup, Audrey?
Very much. Listen, there's got to be some reward after watching Northwestern, Illinois, and Iowa, and UMass and Delaware. Watching those games, it's been rough at times, and the whole time I'm sitting there last weekend against UMass saying, okay, can we just let it end? And then I started my probing with some Ohio State questions, which Penn State's players did not particularly like because they were focused on celebrating the win against UMass.
Oh,
I had already turned the page. I was here to move on to the big game. I'm very much looking forward to it. So I hope they enjoyed the UMass celebration, but I did not care.
You don't give yourself 24 hours to celebrate the victory before moving on to the next one?
No, by halftime, I was writing my It's Ohio State Week column.
Good. That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
So you mentioned all of the teams that Penn State has played, none of them particularly impressive. Like, Iowa's got a good defense, and I guess that's maybe the nicest thing I can say about Penn State's schedule to this point. So
West Virginia, that win is looking
it's aged well. Yeah, it's aged well. But what do you like? What do you feel like you know about Penn State? Because like statistically, they look great. The defense looks awesome, but they've not, in my estimation, been challenged really all that much. And certainly they're going to be challenged this week. So like, what is your vibe, I guess, for how ready they are for this step up in competition?
There's been no bulletin board material coming out this week. Drew Aller, Ohio guy, was asked this week about how many tickets he's expecting on Saturday. And Drew was like, yeah, I have no idea. I'll let my parents handle that. So, even like Caden Saunders, he was the punt returner, unclear if he'll still be after Daquan Hardy returned 2 punts for touchdowns last week, but he's from Westerville, so he was made available this week. Again, not much has been said in terms of a rivalry or like, and I don't want to use the term rivalry, right? Because like, this has been a really good series. But what I feel like I know about Penn State, I think this defense is legit. I think Manny Diaz has done a hell of a job with this defense. I think Penn State's defensive ends are really, really good. I think their secondary is really good. I believe that Drew Aller is going to be a big-time NFL quarterback, but I also believe that we have not seen anything close to the potential of Medina's finest in Mr. Aller. To me, it's like, you look at the stats, Penn State has not pushed the ball down the field. James Franklin said this week, like, Drew's managed games, and he's like, I don't want this to be a negative thing, but he's doing what they're asking him to do. But at some point, we're going to need to see some other things. But right now, they're a team that can run the ball, that can grind out clock, which has not been what Penn State's been known for under James Franklin. So it's weird. But I do think that we're going to have to see more from Drew Aller. He's going to have to make some big throws. But I think this is a really good Penn State team so far. That's what I think, Bill. Okay. Saturday night, we're going to find out if I'm completely wrong or if I was just daydreaming during some of these cakewalk games.
Well, Audrey, you posted the video last Wednesday night. Like, they were just airing it deep when you guys got in there to watch. Like, take those deep shots. Like, they can do it.
Austin, to be fair, I skipped practice last Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
Because it was UMass week and because my Braves were getting it handed to them. But
wait, that can't be right because I saw the video and I don't follow any other Penn State reporters.
You know what? I saw it online, so it must be true. I went back for the interviews, and there's some really sad audio of me. Like, actually, I was literally watching the baseball game while I was talking to players. Not my best moment as a reporter. But that was said. There was so much made. And the interesting thing to me was when that whole exchange happened in the media room, like I understood what the reporter was asking because that's been a storyline with Penn State. They haven't stretched the field this year. Like, will they? Why haven't they? But then the thing goes viral and like, I just didn't expect that. So I think it was like James Franklin was trying to be funny, trying to play into it, I think, a little bit. And
Yeah.
then the internet ran with it. It got out there. So then this week he's being like extra measured because he doesn't want any more viral clips. So I don't know. I just was glad I wasn't the viral moment for once, because usually it's me on this beat.
So, yeah, what do you make of the explosive plays? That's been like,
Mhm.
we're talking about that a lot in Columbus because Ohio State has been one of the best teams in the country at avoiding them and eliminating them defensively. And then you look and you scroll down, whoa, top 10, top 20, top 100, 133. There's Penn State in explosive offensive plays like that. That is strange. Now they're controlling the clock, they're winning games, they're scoring points still, but that's a fascinating sort of juxtaposition for this matchup.
Yeah, you got to bring the shovel when you're looking on CFB stats and find them buried all the way at the bottom in that category. It's jarring. I mean, you look at that, and that is not. I mean, back in August, back in the preseason, when everybody was feeling good, we weren't tired, everybody was optimistic, every team was undefeated. The thing that I thought was going to be true, I thought Penn State was going to be an explosive offense. Like, that was the one thing I felt confident in. I thought, you know what? Drew Aller has that big arm. We're going to see it. Penn State's running backs, like the big play potential. I mean, you think back to Nick Singleton in the Rose Bowl, and I was like, man, he's having his Saquon Barkley moment. He's breaking runs like crazy. And then we get to this season, and they're winning in ways that I didn't think would be the case, right? Like, the Iowa game was just like one of the craziest box scores you will ever see. I mean, just a statistical masterclass. Like, I should have probably kept my book so I could frame it after that one. But time of possession is one of those stats that Penn State has been really good in. But again, to me, like, at some point you have to show that you're explosive, right? Like, you have to be able to score and score quickly. And to me, if Penn State falls behind against Ohio State, there might be like an oh shit moment, right? Because one, we haven't seen Penn State play from behind much this year. I believe, if I'm recalling correctly, for a hot second, they trailed Northwestern. And that was it. Like, they haven't had to come from behind. And what happens if they find themselves in that moment? Will Aller start to force things? The other thing, the receiving core, it's been a question mark. That was kind of the storyline all offseason on Penn State. That's held true. Keandre Lambert-Smith is their number one. The way in which I think this receiving core is about to get better, which timing is not great for Ohio State in this regard, Harrison Wallace is back. Trey Wallace, they call him, because he's Harrison Wallace III. So Trey Wallace is back. He's super explosive, really good athlete. He's someone who hasn't had like that monster game throughout his career, so a bit of an unproven guy, but the potential's there, the athleticism's there, and I think he's the guy who maybe breaks out, because Keandre Lambert-Smith is really good. But again, what's the rest of that receiving core? Like, who is that number 3 receiver? They've been having a competition all season to figure out who the number 3 is, and the fact that they're still having a competition tells us that, you know, that 3 spot's still up for grabs. So to me, that parlays into the whole explosive element. But with Trey Wallace back in the fold now, he played last week against UMass. So that's something for Ohio State to kind of think about.
Audrey, our colleague and someone you're familiar with, Doug Lemeries, on
I thought you were going to mention the other guy, Mr. Wasserman.
No, we don't say his name here. Doug on Monday posited a theory to me, and I want your take on it. He said that Penn State has been deliberately playing this way and deliberately not been explosive and been check down city and matriculate the ball down the field as a way to lull Ohio State into a false sense of security. And then on Saturday, they are going to unleash the full explosive potential of this offense on the Ohio State defense. Do you believe that to be the case?
I think there might be some credence to what Doug is saying.
Okay.
Now, if I was putting a percentage on it, I would say maybe there's like 60% truth to what Doug is saying. Now, and the reason I say that is because, and again, and so I'm sure so many people listening to this, they've seen it, right? Like, they saw Drew Aller in high school. They saw Medina come out, spread everybody out, just let him throw. This guy has an insanely gifted arm. And we've seen it in spurts and some of the balls that he's really drilled in tight windows. But to me, like, I remember the first time I went to Medina and watched him throw, I was like having that moment of like, oh my God, this guy's remarkable, right? And it's just a practice. And then afterward, he told me he was only throwing it like 60% or something. And I was like, well, that looks really good. So keep doing that. So I think there's more there, right? Like I do believe there's more there. Now, Aller's timing with his receivers is something that's come into focus, something that's been talked a lot about during Penn State's Idle Week. We had a Zoom with Mike Yursich, and Mike was basically asked, like, how concerned are you that Aller's timing looked off with his receivers? And Mike was like, I am very concerned. Like, we need to fix that right away. So I think, again, to the 40% side of that, of Doug maybe being wrong, I do think like there's some of that too. Now, James Franklin did say this week that part of why he went viral last week with his response to the chunk play question was because he said, as a coach for your entire career, you're telling people like, take the check down, take the check down. He's like, Drew is doing that, and he's doing it really well, and he's doing it all the time. Aller doesn't have a turnover yet in a Penn State uniform. That's 16 games worth of work. But then again, like, are you maybe being too cautious, right? I'm a Packers fan, so I was an Aaron Rodgers fan. And how many times with Aaron would you say, hey, man, I wish you were a little more aggressive and maybe wouldn't care as much about potentially turning the ball over and make that, that high-risk throw. So I think there's some credence to that. So I don't know, man. Maybe they come out guns a-blazing Saturday afternoon. Maybe Yursich has been playing it coy all along. But to me, where I think Penn State has a lot of room to grow and develop as an offense is I just feel like at some point we're going to see the same Nick Singleton that we saw last year. So that he's catching a lot of passes. He's doing a lot of things well, doing a really nice job in pass protection. He doesn't have 100 yards rushing in a game. Again, back to my crazy preseason thoughts. Thought they were going to be explosive. I thought for sure Singleton would have several games where he was over 100 yards. And that hasn't been the case yet.
When you think about, I don't know, crazy thoughts and weird stats and stuff like that, Audrey, like I said a couple weeks ago, and Bill, I don't know, I pulled it out of my head. It's like people were freaking out about some of Ohio State's stuff, and they say, well, this isn't good enough to beat Penn State. Like they take these games against the lesser opponents, and they say, well, that won't work in 2 weeks, or that's not going to work against this opponent. And I'm like, is that unique to Ohio State? Because it feels like the standard is like ridiculous here. And I just said, like, I didn't mean it to be Penn State, even though Bill was standing right next to me. I was like, is this what's happening at Penn State? Are they like, we don't get explosive plays, we can't beat Ohio State this way, and like everybody freaks out? Or are they like, well, it's college football, like it's hard, they won games, like they're getting better? Like, what has been the mood of the fan base or the media coverage for during this stretch where maybe the opponents haven't been the best in the country?
It's been a little bit of a mix, but there definitely have been some thieves of joy in there. Probably me, especially after UMass. I was one of those people that was just kind of like, yeah, it's UMass, so what? Move it along here.
Right.
I do think that there's something to your point, though, Austin, that for Penn State, I always measure it against, is this good enough to beat Ohio State? Is this good enough to beat Michigan? Right? Because we're essentially in a 3-team Big Ten race right now, right? Like, we've seen the rest of the field, and Maryland's got some scare potential. Penn State will play, of course, Maryland later on this year. But you look at it, and I do say, part of me as just a college football fan says, you know what, enjoy the ride, right? Enjoy the fact that your team's 6-0. But we all know damn well one of these fan bases is going to be totally off their rocker by Saturday evening with the result of this game, and it's going to be on us to help them through it.
Sure.
But I do think you're right. I mean, I think especially for these 3 teams, these marquee teams, you want to see how does this stack up. But again, like one of the things that a lot of Penn State fans were asking, because, we all hear the theories, right? Well, was how much was Ryan Day holding guys out against Purdue, right? On purpose. Like there's that side of it too. Do you think how much of this was gamesmanship maybe with Day? Because my whole thing with Penn State, I was saying, hey, listen, you're coming off an idle week, and then you got UMass, so you've got 3 weeks to get ready. Like, rest up.
Yeah, I think that they probably wish that they had done that with Denzel Burke in the third quarter. I mean, they had a number of starters on the field in the fourth quarter before they kind of really shut it down. It was like they were of two minds last week. I felt like it's in control and it's rainy. they kind of wanted it to be more than a 34-point win. And they had a weird mix up, like mashed up lineup out there in the fourth quarter, like backup defensive linemen and all the starting safeties. And like, I thought that was a little bit odd. The starting offensive line stayed out there. So like, I guess with Travion, he's probably the only one out of that group that could have played against Purdue. So I would probably cut those conspiracy theories off beyond that. Like Emeka was really struggling to leave, late the week before against Maryland with the knee injury. They picked up a significant injury with Denzel Burks. Like, I don't think that they were pulling a lot back because they've played with fire in other games too. And like, they didn't want to do that against Purdue. I promise you.
Just trying to go 1-0 each week. I mean, that's the deal.
On to Purdue and then on to Penn State after that.
That's right. That's what it's all about. Audrey, so I think like Austin and I think have a pretty firm grasp on what worries Ohio State fans at the moment, like what could cost them a game. And I think probably like offensive line play is number one on that list. What is it for Penn State fans? Like what are they worried about, if anything? What's the thing that maybe is an unknown or something that perhaps isn't a good matchup for them going into this game or even the Michigan game down the road?
That's a really good question, Bill, because I feel like they worry about everything. Gosh, I think the receiving core at this point, you would have liked to have seen that number 2, number 3 receiver. And again, Harrison Wallace is that number 2, but he's been unavailable for most of this year, right? So you just haven't seen it. The other spot that I now might cause some panic because I think fans are maybe feeling okay about this. Right tackle Caden Wallace, right? JT, the game wrecker, is going to line up on Caden Wallace, right? Because Olu Fashanu at left tackle.
Well, he should. Will he?
He should. That's. I mean, yeah. If they're letting me run this operation, that's how I would run it, right?
Larry Johnson never asks us our opinion, or
you know what? Maybe should I text Larry? Should I text him some thoughts?
Yeah.
Don't say that you were talking to me.
I won't. I was talking to Bill Landis of Penn State, and but to me, like that's how I would play it. And I think looking back at the majority of the snaps last year, he was set up on the right side because Olu Fashanu, the left tackle, got hurt late in the game. And of course, that's when everything snowballed, but the right side was the problem. Now, Caden Wallace has done a nice job this year, but Olu Fashanu is an absolute stud at left tackle, right? So I think you probably want to try to exploit that right side. The other thing with that, though, and again, Penn State's offensive line has done a nice job this year. Like, this isn't, for Ohio State fans, like, this is not the ragtag Penn State offensive line that you've seen over the last few years. Like, they've done a really nice job under Phil Trautwein the last couple of years of really building this thing up and building the depth up. Area of concern, Penn State's left guard. Venga Owane is a redshirt freshman. Now, JB Nelson was hurt against Northwestern, was carted off the field between quarters. He's expected back at some point this season, but as you and I both know, that's like a month, right? Like, so you've got another month. I don't know if we see him this week. We haven't seen practice yet this week. So if Nelson can't go, then it's Venga who gets the start at left guard. He's like 346 pounds, does not look like a redshirt freshman. They're really high on him. But keep in mind, coming into this year, this was your third string left guard because Landon Tangwall medically retired. So again, you look at areas that maybe you try to exploit. You just don't have a lot of road experience there at that spot. So that would be the thing to me. I have no concerns about Penn State's defense. And I think I haven't said that often, but I truly think this defensive line is good. These ends, Bill, they are a handful. Chop Robinson, Adisa Isaac, Denai Dennis Sutton, they view them as co-starters. And it's true. I mean, Chop Robinson can create a lot of problems, and they will do on third downs, and you guys will enjoy seeing this live, I'm sure. They will get all three of those defensive ends on the field together. Like, Manny Diaz has not been shy about playing to their strengths. And the other thing is, this is a really fresh defense because they haven't played a ton of snaps just because they've been so dominant. I mean, you look at some of these games and you're looking at snap counts where it's like the guy who played the most snaps was like 30. I mean, it's pretty jarring. I think Penn State's leading tackler, linebacker Curtis Jacobs, He's played in all 6 games, and at this point, he leads the team with, I want to say, 23 tackles. The next highest guy has 16, right?
Jeez.
So, like, it is seriously crazy. But that's why I have no reservations about this defense, even though they have not played an offense anywhere close to this.
That must still be why Ryan Day was marveling at the Penn State-Iowa box score. He brought that up on Tuesday. He was like, I don't think I've ever seen this before. It was like 90-30 in plays. Like,
it was like looking at the snap counts the next day, and it was a night game, and I'm like, am I reading this right? Like, did I miss, it was just seriously like, I understand Ryan Day, like looking at that and being like, what the hell happened? Because it was absolutely crazy.
Yeah. Bill, do you have any other football questions, or can I ask Audrey about beer and Taylor Swift now?
No, I have one more football question because I went on Audrey's podcast and she put me on the spot with this question.
Oh,
so
boy.
now I'm asking you this question.
Oh boy.
Who would you rather have in this game, Audrey, Drew Aller, or Kyle McCord?
To be fair, my question was, who would you rather build a franchise around?
No, that's not what you said.
I think it was. Maybe I'm lying.
No, because I tweaked my answer. I said long term, I might rather have McCord, but I think Aller. But in this game, I think I want McCord.
Bill took a really safe answer. I'm not. I'm going to go Drew Aller. And Penn State fans are probably now going to get concerned because they're not sure if I like their program or hate their program. Like they like that I keep them guessing. I think Aller is special. I really do. Now, I think here's the other thing. I think McCord's going to be damn good. We haven't seen both of these guys hit anywhere close to their potential yet, but I think Aller is special. The other side of this, Ohio State has had some insanely good quarterbacks come through there. So judging McCord, you're going to think about that, right? Like you're going to think about these other guys that you say, oh yeah, he's good, but he's not that. You don't have that at Penn State, right? Like this is a place that has been more so known for, hey, you got a high profile quarterback and it didn't work out, right? Like I wrote a story preseason talking to some of their guys like Anthony Morelli and Rob Bolden, these Penn State quarterbacks of the past that were supposed to be the guy and it never happened, right? So I think the situations there probably make it a little bit different. Now, Bill, I do like the fact, because again, we love storylines here. We're in the business of storytelling. I love the fact that you get the Pennsylvania/Jersey guy and Kyle McCord against the Ohio guy and Drew Aller, and the fact that they both end up then at the opposite school, right? Like that's great for storylines. And you get Marvin Harrison, which by the way, I remembered this, but then forgot about it, and was kicking myself because I said, shit, this would have been a great story for this week. Kyle McCord's coach, Gabe Infante, is on Penn State's staff. He's one of the many analysts here. And I remembered after the game last year, I caught a second where he was on the field with McCord and Marvin Harrison Jr. So you get those storylines. I'm going to go Aller because I think he's special, but we'll see, Bill. I mean, Penn State they've fared way worse with quarterbacks.
One time when I was in school, we were playing basketball at the IM building, and Anthony Morelli tried to dunk on me.
Oh, no.
And I caught him as he was going up to the rim and like walked him away from the basket so he couldn't dunk on me.
That's a foul, Bill.
It was a foul. Yeah. I just didn't want to get dunked on.
Anthony Morelli is now a quarterback trainer. One of the kid who's committed to Colorado. He's training with Morelli in Indiana.
What? Audrey, what did these guys say when you sent out the texts and emails like, hey, I'm working on a story on all the Penn State bus and Christian Hackenberg hasn't replied yet.
Yeah, so no, I had to be nice about it, and like kind of politely broach this because you don't know, right? It's like, and I'm kind of like, well, how do you think of your career? Like, am I terribly off base? And it's especially weird with people like I didn't cover Anthony Morelli's playing career, which probably helped my case to like reach out. But yeah, I'm reaching back, and then I'm thinking, oh man, like I'm running this week 1, and fans are gonna think I'm like jinxing them. And I was like, we have to be really clear in the framing of this story that I am not saying I think Drew Aller is gonna be a bust. Like that's not what I think. But it worked out, and tell you what, it's interesting too when you think of. And college football is so special. Like Anthony Morelli was at Penn State's game at Purdue last year, and like nobody knew who he was, right? But like they know that they know the stats, they know the memories, but he's just like sitting there able to take in a game with his family because he's like, yeah, like that's the school that I love, right? Like it's so different. But yeah, I had to be really tactful with my emails and text, which you guys know really isn't I'm very direct with these things. And
I don't know. You were being pretty tactful not to call Kyle McCord a Philly kid because you didn't want to upset Bill.
Well, I mean, it's the whole like the whole region, right? Like you can't just say like, but Bill, do we classify Kyle McCord as an outside of Philly guy? Because outside of Philly,
he's a proud product of the Philadelphia Catholic League.
Yeah, yeah, he is. I also we can do a 10-minute diatribe for me on St. Joe's Prep and how they recruit players and how they cheated their way to Catholic League titles.
Well, there's the linebacker that I talked to this spring or summer, and I was talking because he's like, oh, I go to St. Joe's Prep, and I was like, yeah, so how far is your drive? And because I mean, it's one of those things where it's like they need to be in their own separate. Like, go ahead and play IMG Academy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're done with football?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. If you don't want to hear about the best beer that Audrey's had during the football season, which is obviously going to happen in Columbus this weekend, the beer capital of the world, and about her going to the actual Eras Tour.
It's true.
She caught it live. She caught the recording of the movie.
Caught lightning in a bottle live at the Eras Tour.
Oh, there it is. All right. That's pretty wild. So that's cool, and you're going to watch it on Friday in Columbus.
Well,
right?
Yeah. So I went to. This is going to sound really extravagant. I went to SoFi
It is
Stadium.
extravagant.
I went to SoFi Stadium for the Eras Tour, which it's because I got a face value ticket because a friend got picked for the lottery because I didn't get picked because it's not the Philadelphia Phillies postseason lottery where they just pick anybody like me. So I went to SoFi Stadium with a bunch of friends. And this was back in August, right? And you guys know the drill. Football season, I'm like, early August, like this is rough, but it's a face value ticket and like miles, hotel points. Like it's cheaper for me to fly across the country to see Taylor Swift than it is to go see her in Philly.
Right.
Crazy. Now, I did see her back in the day in 2011 at Beaver Stadium on Penn State's campus. My ticket was $20 and I found $40 in the parking lot. So she paid me to go to her show.
Ooh, nice. Love it.
Yeah. She's very generous.
Very generous. So I went to the tour in California. It was a great time, but had a massive oh no moment because Penn State has never done their media day on a Sunday ever. And we find out Penn State's moving their media day from a Saturday to a Sunday, which was the day I was supposed to fly to California. So I had to rearrange my flight so I can make media day. So Penn State people, if you're listening, you're welcome. I did this for you. Still made the concert, had a great time. But so, yeah, I bought the ticket for Columbus to go see the Eras Tour, like the movie. So that's my big Friday. Like after I get through this Ohio State week, I'm going to some very nice movie theater, apparently, somewhere in the area. Yeah. And I'm going in the middle of the afternoon, all alone, to see the Eras Tour again.
I love it.
It is a nice theater. Yeah, you'll enjoy it. Yeah.
I hope so. Do they have beer at that theater?
Yes.
Yeah, they do.
Do they? Okay. Because we don't have fancy theaters here in State College. This isn't big city living.
Yeah, not necessarily our finest beer offerings, which I know you've had from previous visits. What have you had so far? Not a ton of opportunities to be on the road yet, but what have you been drinking?
Oh man. So Penn State, when they played Northwestern, greatest thing that's ever happened to me in my reporting career. Penn State has 3 commits this year from the state of Wisconsin.
Okay.
New Glarus Brewing
Like where
Company.
this is going.
Mm-hmm. You know exactly where this is going. So New Glarus Brewing Company, I absolutely love their beers, each and every one of them. So I went out a day or two early to go to Wisconsin to talk to these recruits and got as much New Glarus beer as I could. Like, I mean, I'm talking, it's a big amount of beer that I had and that I brought back with me in a checked bag. So there is oh man, I can't even begin to tell you. They have this one beer. It's a raspberry beer that's a mix of champagne and fruit beer. It's a world-class beer and like one of the best beers I've had in my, like, I would put this as like a top beer of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Now the problem is they only make it in bottles, right? So that's a little hard when you've got to fly back. But I've got my beer packing down. Like that's my claim to fame. I've never broken a bottle on a flight. I've got it packed perfectly well. So yeah, that was like superb beer trip, which really helped with my sorrows because the Packers played that Thursday night and my Packers got absolutely smoked by the Lions, but the beers were good.
Yeah.
So that was, that was an elite road beers trip.
Yeah, that is. If you've had New Glarus, like, and you were able to fit that in, I didn't project that you had done that for Northwestern. So that's on me. That's my bad.
Here's the thing. And if you ever need the name, I can tell you the closest, actually, I'll give you the name. Woodman's grocery store is the closest to the border of Illinois. So it's like 45 minutes across the border. I was bringing beer. This is fine to share, but I was bringing beer for other people on the beat. Like we were in the Northwestern parking garage and I was like, hey, here are these beers you wanted. Here are these for you. And everyone's looking in my trunk and they're like, what is happening here? But I've done this several times. Like one time I had a flight. Penn State was playing Iowa, but our flight got canceled. And so we had to fly to Madison. And I was sitting in the airport in Detroit doing a Total Wine order for Madison. And I said to the guy, I was like, hey, can we stop here? Like, it's right. I promise it's along the way. And we made it work. So anytime I am like, because that's the thing with New Glarus, right? You can only get their beers in Wisconsin. So that was really good. There was another brewery called, I believe it's Gathering Place. It's a Wisconsin brewery, and they've got a Packers themed beer. It is tasty. Got a few of those in the fridge right now as well.
Is it called Overrated Lager?
Oh, come on, Bill. No, it is not. It is not. Man,
just curious. Yeah.
No. Where should I go in this? Where are my road beers this weekend in Columbus?
We'll get to that. Well, because I don't want to have you driving all over town, Audrey. So I'll put together an itinerary for you. Like you're not in the true hotspot over there where you're staying, but I'll figure it out for you. There's certainly some options.
Because you know how this ends, right? Like if you don't give me good recommendations, I'm gonna end up at a Buffalo Wild Wings.
No.
That's how every Big Ten road trip goes, and I just end up at a Buffalo Wild Wings, and I'm like, yeah, sure, this is fine.
If you do that in Columbus, I'll have failed you, and I will be so disappointed. And when we see you on Saturday in the press box, I'll have to go hide because I'll be so embarrassed.
You know what? There used to be, and because I've always, we always stay outside of towns on these things. There was a really cool barcade somewhere that I used to go to. It was pretty much like in a strip mall, but it was it was within walking distance of my hotel. So that was always had many a good nights there.
We've got a few of those here, 16-bit and pins.
It was 16-bit. That's what it was.
Yeah.
I went to, I've gone to Urban Meyer's Chop House.
Sounds like you spent a lovely evening at Bridge Park in Dublin is what we're getting at.
I think that's where I was. Yeah. It was,
well, now it's a designated outdoor refreshment area. So you can walk around with beer there and, it's going to have a lovely October, Friday night available to you for that. So, something to consider.
So I don't need to bring my beers with me, is what you're telling me. There's plenty of options. Right?
No, we have. It's exploded here. We've got like 55 craft breweries in Columbus now, so you're covered. I promise.
Good, because when you guys come to State College next year, we've got an improved beer scene here. I will say, we've got
come to State College. That's impossible.
What you mean, Bedford? Yeah, we'll see. We'll see in Bedford.
Yeah, when you guys drive in from Altoona or Bedford, I'll let you know.
Yeah, I can't wait to see if the Bedford Brewing has the same 5 beers next year when I come back.
You know what? I was gonna say I've never been to Bedford Brewing, so I'll have to take your word for it. No, there's a lot of better improved places around here. Actually, I got some Voodoo Brewing Company. They're from Erie, but we've got one in State College. Got some of their beers in my fridge right now too.
I love to hear it. Sounds like you are ready and fully stocked for any situation.
Yes.
And there's a big one coming up. So you don't pack it, but make sure you have everything ready to go as you travel over on Thursday. You've got some other stories that you're working on. If you need Penn State coverage this week, go to The Athletic, subscribe for Audrey Snyder's work. If you used to have one for Bill Landis, it might still be good. I don't know. Check. Yeah. Make sure if they didn't cancel your credit card. So,
You
That's
might
where
still
you
be
wanna
getting
go.
charged for Bill. Yeah.
If you are and you want Penn State coverage, go read Audrey. I promise it'll be worth it. We appreciate her taking half an hour to join us and give some insight. We really appreciate it. We're looking forward to seeing her in the press box in the Horseshoe on Saturday. Audrey, thanks for joining us.
Take care.
All right. For Bill, I'm Austin. We'll talk to you later.